Hi, everybody. Welcome to the KPRC 2 Sports Podcast. Great to have you with us here as we talk some sports. This is episode number 5. It has been too long since we debuted this podcast, but it is fun each and every week. I'm KPRC Sports Director Randy McElvoy. We're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes talking with a guy. If you follow football here in the Houston area, and for that matter across the country, you know his name, Aaron Wilson. And one of the best in the business, and he is hanging out with us here in our podcast studio at KPRC 2 in Houston, Texas. Aaron Wilson, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah, we talk on Sports Sunday, and we see each other out at practices and ball games, and it's been fun having you on a lot of our broadcasts over the years. Now, 7, 8 years you've been popping in here on Sports Sunday, but I know a lot of fans have enjoyed your stories and your coverage of the NFL. You obviously have a passion for it, and you're very good at what you do.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I love football. Grew up in Washington, D.C., going to used to be the different teams, but now they're the Commanders. But, yeah, I used to go to a lot of their games as a kid. So I was watching Joe Theismann and guys like that play football. And it just got me interested in the game. And I played a little high school ball, a little college ball, nothing too great. We did win a high school championship. But
nice.
Our fullback and nose guard was a guy named Kevin Plank. He started Under Armour. Yeah. And real proud of him.
He started Under Armour.
He started Under Armour.
You played with that guy.
He was a year ahead of me in
nice.
school. And he was our fullback and nose guard. We called him the Planker.
Okay.
And we beat DeMatha Catholic my 11th grade year. They did a direct snap to Kevin, and he scored a touchdown. And we're at Byrd Stadium at University of Maryland. A lot of people there. We win 29-13. And
nice.
I think I had like 1 or 2 tackles in this game, but I did better the next year. I got
there you go.
Catholic League, but it was fun. I love football. Love talking about football, writing about football, and I mean, what's not to like? You know, the game is great.
Got a lot to talk about here in H-Town with the Texans. Before we dive into that, I want to ask you, walk everybody through that isn't aware of your journey to get to Houston. You worked at some great places and had the chance to cover a lot of different areas of the game, different teams as well on every level. Walk us through real quick kind of where you've been along the way in your professional career.
It does not start in the NFL, as you know.
You mean you didn't come out of college and immediately?
I was a high school sports reporter in Brooksville, Florida. I interned in Pensacola, Florida. And I did everything from in Pensacola, minor league ice hockey to a couple Florida State games and mostly high school football.
Right.
And high school football is how I had done a lot of college football. When I went to East Carolina, I'd covered bowl games. I'd done all these things, but I didn't start off with my full-time job that way. My first job was in Brooksville, Florida, at a place called Hernando County. Only real famous person from there was a guy named Jerome Brown, who was a Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle.
Were you like the only writer on the staff?
We had 2 writers.
Okay, so had to cover everything.
As far as sports, so we covered Little League, we covered high school sports, we did all these things. And then about after a year, I got to go to St. Augustine, Florida, another small town.
Right,
and
beautiful area.
Strategically pick them, and they let me cover 3 football games a week during the fall. High school football, University of Florida on Saturdays when they were at home, and the Jaguars games.
Okay.
So that was back when Mark Burnell was their quarterback and Tom Coughlin.
So that's kind of when you broke in and got to cover NFL.
Coverage. Okay. And I didn't think I was the best NFL reporter. There was a guy named Pete Prisco who's now at CBS. He was the local beat guy, and he was hard-nosed. And I would watch Pete. And Pete and Tom Coughlin would joust and go at it, and I'd think, wow, this is, an eye-opener. Like, I'm just out of college. I don't really – I'm not used to a lot of confrontations, and they're seem pretty feisty. So I'm watching this, and I just learned. I asked Pete questions, and I'd ask other writers, and I'd try to look for mentors. And that was actually the first year I met John McClain. And John was covering he came to a Jaguars game because he was there to do an Eddie Robinson feature who had played for the Oilers before.
Right.
So he was there just for Eddie. He was traveling around. They didn't have a team. The Texans did not exist yet. So John was there.
I remember that. He would kind of tour around and go to a different game every week.
I introduced myself and I said, told him I was a big fan of his and read all his stories, his NFL notebook, and I, asked him if it would be okay to send him some articles, and he said, sure. So I literally mailed him articles, and he gave me a little feedback, and he said, this is good, and keep at it, and let me know if you ever need anything. And then one year I'm at the owners' meetings, and John was there, and I talked to him some more, and he introduced me to a few people. And then I went to Nashville area. I was in Clarksville, Tennessee, and I covered the Titans. And then they get to the Super Bowl and covering Jeff Fisher and Steve McNair. And then they're a yard short. They don't win the game. And where I think it really took off for me was when I got to go to the Baltimore Sun after being a small newspaper called the Carroll County Times. So I think what you're getting here is paid a lot of dues. You have to work your way up.
You absolutely did.
You don't start off necessarily. Some people are so fortunate and talented to go. Maybe they start off at ESPN or they start off, at a Houston Chronicle or New York Times or whatever that might be. And my journey's been more like, well, I really had to, earn it and put in my time and break a lot of stories and have a lot of good relationships and just really, I would say it's not just about paying your dues, but it's about being consistent.
Right.
And,
doing that solid, consistent work. Yeah.
You have to spend more time immersed in the work than thinking about, well, what would this story do for me? Well, you just, like what they say in football, it's a cliche, but it's a truism.
Right.
Stack days, stack articles,
right.
or have a good podcast today. Everything you do.
Well, it's like a saying I go by too. It's like, you may have had in your case, the best story yesterday, or maybe I had one of my best shows yesterday, but that was like yesterday.
Right.
You're only as good as your next story, your next show, and you want to stack those consistent good ones out there. So you've certainly done that,
Thank
man.
you.
You've been around a long time, and man, you know the game well. You know a lot of people, and I know a lot of people enjoy your coverage. So now with the Pro Football Network,
right,
you do some work with Sports Talk 790. You're going to be joining KPRC digital team as well. Still doing some appearances as well when your schedule allows, and that's exciting, man. We're excited to have you on board and just bring your expertise as well to our pro football coverage and definitely with the Texans.
Proud and grateful to be a part of it, and I've always loved coming in here. Been coming in here for years since my first year when I moved here.
We need to just give you one of those badges where you just swipe in and the door opens.
Sounds
and
good.
Hey, it's Aaron Wilson. He's here.
You get some nice snacks in the fridge. It sounds good. I'll come hang out.
That's right. Hey, let's talk some Texans if we can here on this KPRC2 podcast. Again, episode 5. As we inch a little bit closer to the regular season, we can't wait when it all begins on September 11th. NRG Stadium against the Indianapolis Colts, but they still got some preseason games to play and a lot of workouts, and Aaron, a lot of decisions still to be made by head coach Lovie Smith and his staff. As this drops, the game is coming up tomorrow, Saturday evening at NRG Stadium, so it'll be our first look at these guys on the field in a game situation. Before we get to that, I want to ask you just, we're now a couple weeks into camp. What has been the theme, you think, of camp and these camp workouts so far when you see how Lovie runs a practice and maybe some guys that have stood out? What's your initial takeaways?
My initial takeaways, it's been pretty crisp. They've had a good vibe around the team. You get a feel for them. What are the guys like? What's their enthusiasm? What's the buy-in? What are guys saying? And you really have to, whether it's in front of the podium or what they say privately, the takeaway I've had is they really like Lovie and they respect Lovie. One player the other day said it's like talking to your dad. You stand up and you pay attention and you take notice and you listen to what he has to say. And this is a guy that's been an NFL Coach of the Year. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's been in this game a long time, and that gives him a lot of credibility with the players. And it's just different. Sometimes when you're a first-time head coach like a David Culley, you're still finding your way. You're finding your voice. And Lovie's already got his voice, and he's got a really good imprint on everything with the game. And, he's also, I would say, even though he's an old school guy, the way he treats these guys is very modern. These practices are not brutal. They're, demanding, but, we're not seeing a lot of serious injuries. We're not seeing a lot of hitting. We're not seeing people going to the ground. Remember Bill O'Brien era, they would tackle a lot. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think he's doing everything he can to try to keep these guys healthy while also teaching. And as far as standouts, we were talking to one of them this week, Jalen Petrie.
Man,
he's been a lot of plays.
Yeah, he spoke on Wednesday at camp, and that was the first time I think all of us out there saying, we asked the PR, when is Jalen Petrie going to talk? Can we talk to Jalen Petrie? Man, he has really turned heads, and I guess as advertised coming out of Baylor, but man, it seems like it's been really quick with him.
Right, the way he finds the football. He likes to emulate he has some really good role models, Tyrann Mathieu, Budda Baker, and he's a versatile safety. If you look at what he did at Baylor, he played even a sort of a modified linebacker position at one point called the star.
Yep.
He has done a lot of things in nickel, but for the Texans right away, they're mostly using him as a pure safety. And he is first on the depth chart along with Derek Stingley. And that was one thing I took away from that conversation, that Stingley and Petrie are comparing notes. They're talking ball. They're both students of the game. They're both very talented. Obviously, Stingley is ultra talented. That's why he was the third pick of the draft overall. But when you think about to have two building blocks in the secondary, and you're talking about actual talent and guys that you can plug in right away. And obviously, we've got to see how they play in the games, but it seems promising, the early return.
Based on what we're seeing at practice, I mean, they're constantly making plays. Petrie's real vocal out there, and I love that out of a rookie. I don't know how often, and you've been around the game a long time, how often do you see rookies 2 weeks into camp kind of almost taking the defense on their shoulders?
I can think of one time, and his name was Ed Reed, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
There you go.
But he's special,
right.
Different kind of safety that sort of, in some ways, like a revolutionized safety play where people are still talking about him way after his retirement.
But he's feeling comfortable doing that.
Yes.
Sometimes rookies just kind of do their business and keep their mouth shut. What does that tell you? That he's actually already not afraid, not holding back. And I think he's earning a lot of respect real quickly.
Highly respected by his teammates, by older players.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
And it does resonate, the leadership qualities and the fact that high character, high football character, someone that has family support, went to high school here, went to Baylor. A lot of people, whether it's general managers from other teams or coaches, have asked me, hey, how's Petrie look? We really like Petrie in the draft. And the Texans got themselves a good one. I think Nick Caserio, it's way early to talk about a home run in this draft, but it looks really good on paper. And if they get Kenyon Green, healthy, Kenyon's sideline right now with a knee injury. He's their first-round pick from Texas A&M.
I was going to ask you,
High School.
Again, not out there as of Wednesday, and is that a concern right now that he's missing so much time when they're counting on him? I mean, this offensive line has to step up this season. You got great bookends, the interior of that offensive line. Is that a concern if he's not out there?
It is a concern, and it's not a season-ending deal, but he did have a lateral collateral ligament surgery this offseason, and that's why they were slow in the ramp-up in the spring. But the knee is still sore.
So it's kind of a carryover right now.
Some soreness and carryover.
Yeah.
And, there's no real update as far as when is he going to be back. He is back in the meetings. George Warhol, the offensive line coach, told me the other day that now that he's back in the meetings, that's a good sign because they can at least give him the mental reps. What we're watching a lot of, and you love these, like a lot of coaches, when you don't have to have an injury report in the preseason, it doesn't give you a lot. They'll tell you maybe that Garrett Wall, reported this the other day. He has a sprained ankle, and so I don't think he'll play in the preseason game. He's injured. But unless the guy's out for the season, like Darius Anderson's got a dislocated knee, and he's done for the year. He messed up his ligaments too, and is having surgery. Generally, he's just not going to give a big update. But they don't seem alarmed, and everything I'm hearing, whether it's from Kenyon's folks or other people that know him, it's just not viewed as something where he's not going to miss, the entire season. Right now, the thought is that with rest and rehab, that he'll get back out there. But it's not the same. I mean, we saw Max Sharping, who's penciled in as the, next guy up at left guard. And, Max had a good rookie year, but it's been kind of downhill since then. And so that's not the same level, and that's why they drafted Kenyon that high. 15th pick overall. They're expecting a lot from him. Yeah. And as George Warhop said, once he's back out there, you'll see why we draft him that high.
Good. That's encouraging, I know, for Texans fans. We got about 5 minutes. I want to just quickly hit on Davis and then thoughts on the game coming up Saturday against the Saints. Davis Mills, spotlight clearly on him. Everybody's watching almost every drill, every series, every throw that he makes. He's had some good days at camp. I haven't been there every single day like you have, but he's had some good days, some good throws. He's had some days where he's struggled on some of the deep balls. That big a deal right now at camp that maybe some of those deep balls are not on the same page or a little underthrown, or is that something it's a timing thing as camp continues?
I don't think it's cause for alarm, but I don't think it's necessarily his forte or the forte of this offense.
Yeah.
If you look at when Brandon Cooks, when they've done something with him, generally
underneath
it's been something maybe like a post, but it's never – they don't have a lot of fly routes, it looks like, in the offense.
Yeah.
It looks like they're trying to stay ahead of the numbers, ahead of the chains, and move the football, in kind of a workmanlike fashion. I know that they will throw to the tight ends more than they did with Tim Kelly. Pep Hamilton likes that emphasis.
Right.
They don't really have a star tight end. They have good tight ends, Farrell Brown and Brevin Jordan, and they just traded for Adam Shaheen, who's more of a blocking tight end, and Tegan Kuatoriano. He's kind of dinged up. He ices his knee at the end of every practice. That's something that bothered him in the offseason. So he's not 100%. And Anthony Auclair, he's got a sprained knee. He's in a brace. He's not ready yet. We don't know if he'll even be ready for the first game.
So no real deep threat, so to speak.
And,
I wonder if that'll come back, and if you're an opposing defense, is it almost make it easier on defenses to prepare for the Texans? If they don't have a deep threat, they're going to be going
other than Brandon,
a lot underneath stuff.
Yeah, Brandon can stretch the field. He's 4-3 all day, and all night. But when you look at the complementary guys, Nico is fast for a big guy, and he basically is always open because he can body people out of the way. And I think he's had a nice camp. I'm impressed with him. His routes are better. He looks sharper. He shed the rust. He had opted out at Michigan in his final college season, so his rookie year, sort of a work in progress.
He's added weight. He looks really, really good,
he's
man.
Lean and strong.
Yeah, he is.
But they don't have John Mechie III this year. And I think he was going to miss a lot of the season anyway because of the ACL. But John, unfortunately, more important things going on in the football. He's got a form of leukemia.
Yeah, and, that's number one priority, get him healthy.
But I really feel like someone's got to step up in the slot. And Chris Moore has looked the best of those guys that's consistently out there. Philip Dorsett, he's fast too, and he'll flash, but he gets dinged a lot. He had missed about a week of camp, and now he's back. And they're going to compete for the slot job to see who's going to be the primary guy.
I want to ask you just on Mills again, how important, and from my stance, I'm saying, okay, he's got a full off season now coming out. Last year as a rookie. Ended up starting, 10 games, 13 games?
He was 9-2 as a starter, and he had
11,
the sub game in
starts.
Cleveland where he lost that game. But
so he's got the full off season now, and he's still a young quarterback coming out. And how much does the off season make a difference? To me, it's going to go a long ways towards progress, and as he elevates his game next step that he's had this whole time with these guys.
It helps a lot, 2-9 rather as a starter, but it had those 11 starts. When you think about his evolution and his emergence as a guy that has really had a good offseason, he's gotten stronger. He's put time in the weight room. He's sturdier. I think he moves well. I think his arm talent's showing up. And I've had several people tell me, if he had been at Stanford last year, if he had stayed, if he had not gone out early, he would have been clearly a first-round draft pick. And
maybe the number one quarterback
in this draft.
Yeah,
sure.
I think he would.
Think about him as opposed to Kenny Pickett and some of these other guys.
Right.
I just think he's much better. He's more talented.
Is that part of the patience? Even when they drafted him, he had not played tons of football at Stanford, and as far as amount of starts, so it was going to be just give this guy a little bit of time.
Right.
And I think so many people wrote him off, and my stance. I don't know what your stance was, but I was like, man, it's unfair to him right now to say he can't be the guy. He didn't have enough time, and certainly last season he didn't have enough weapons around him. I think it was an unfair assessment last year.
No running game, offensive line without Laramie Tunsil. You got Titus Howard not playing his normal right tackle spot.
Yeah.
And then, it was a historically bad running game. And now they're hinging their hopes. Damian Pierce looks good. Marlon Mack, if he regains his old form before the torn Achilles he had a couple years back. But, I think that the fair evaluation of Davis is, and this whole season, what's the most important big picture thing? Do they have their quarterback, their QB1, for the foreseeable future? And they hope that they have. And if they've hit on him, then you've got a guy on an affordable rookie deal.
Then you start building around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, got about 90 seconds here. Saints coming up Saturday night. What do you want to see out of this? What are you looking for? Because the main guys, if they play, they're not going to play very much probably. What are you anxious to see in a preseason opener?
I'd like to see them not commit penalties. I'd like to see them not turn the football over. I'd like to see a lot of fundamentals. You want to see them tackle well. You want to see them obviously get out with minimal amount of injuries, if any. And you want to see, how does Davis run the offense? What does the offense look like? Obviously, it's limited in terms of the playbook, but how does it look? How is the blocking? How much time does he have? And then, we were talking about the running backs a little bit. they're really on display because if they don't do well, the play action doesn't work. All of these things we're talking about the receivers, it's really hard if there's no complementary presence with the running backs.
We're talking Marlon Mack.
Yep.
I'm excited to see Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to see this guy in action. And Jalen Petrie said the other day, somebody asked him about Dameon, and he was like, yeah, you get in front of him, he can easily run you over. He's that tough of a runner.
The moment they introduced him, I remember he did his very famous shirtless Zoom, and he's very excitable and colorful.
That.
He was fun to talk to. And
great interview.
First thing I ever saw of him was at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
I heard this loud noise on pass blocking pickup. The linebackers are blitzing, and he's knocking people down. He's a big hitter. You hear the plastic popping. Yeah. He's a physical football player.
Fans are going to love seeing that. All right, so Saturday night preseason opener against the Saints. Training camp, couple of weeks in. It's been a fun conversation, man. I appreciate you carving out a few minutes. Aaron Wilson again, you know him well. He's covered the NFL a long time now with Pro Football Network, Sports Talk 790. Does some work for those guys, and now part of the KPRC2 Click to Houston team. You'll be contributing with some great articles and videos, and you'll be pop on the sports Sunday some. So it's going to be good. We're going to have to get you a badge. I think I'm going to talk to some security.
I'm excited.
Here. Get you on board.
Sneak me in here.
Awesome, man. Great to see you. Great conversation with Aaron Wilson. This has been episode 5 of the KPRC 2 podcast, and we'll do it each and every week. It drops every Friday at 12:30. Then, of course, it lives on our website, click2houston.com. Just go to the podcast tab, and you can listen to all of the episodes as well. But this one, fun time talking Houston Texans. That's it for now. For Aaron Wilson, I'm Randy McElvoy. We will talk to you again next week right here on the KPRC 2 Sports Podcast.